Yes. So here we are. Please, let's keep our mics muted so that we don't make a lot of noise for everybody. Um, we are going to go through the entire slide, and then if you have any questions as I go through, you can just write it down somewhere and you can ask after we end the session. So if I'm very fast, you can drop a comment there. Simon will be able to read it out later, because when I'm sharing my screen fully, I'm not able to see comments and all that. Okay. So today we are going to be looking at how we can be able to write very strong cover letters and CVs. Yeah. And today's session is one of the most important sessions in your entire job readiness journey. Why? Because your CV and your cover letter are often the first conversations you have with the employer, because you send it ahead even before you get the opportunity to meet the employer in person. So they are the first conversation that you have with an employer. Okay. So by the end of today's session, we should be able to understand what a CV is, what it looks like, what a cover letter is, what it entails. Identify some of the key things that employers normally look out for, how we can write very strong cover letters and CV, and what are some how we can tailor our CVs and cover letters, and then what are some of the common mistakes that are there and how we can avoid them. So those are some of the things we would be able to understand by the end of today's session. So before we dive into the whole session, for a moment, when we think about CVs and cover letters, most of the time, most of us struggle with where to start, how to start, what format to use, how to write, what to even put in the CV. And then some of us, we are not even sure about how to present our achievements, our skills, and all that in the document. And some of us are basically unsure about what employers really want to see in this document, because some of us have applied over 100 jobs and we've never gotten any feedback, we've never received any invite for an interview, and some of us are yet in school and have never applied for jobs before. So, like, we are considering applying for jobs, but we don't know where to start. So, today's session is basically to help you clear up those confusions and be able to write a very strong CV. So, when we look at a CV, it's what shows what you've done throughout your career, your skills, your experience, and list of facts in terms of your achievement. Whereas the cover letter, why you're a good fit, why we should look at you and not anybody else, what has motivated you to apply, how do you align or fit with the job. So those are, in summary, what we're going to cover in terms of both the CVs and the cover letter. So most employers, they want to see relevance to the job. When they look at your CV and cover letter, they want to see how relevant your application is to the job. Yeah. In terms of in terms of structure, they want to see that your documents are clear and easily readable, not cluttered, poor formatted, and all that. And then they want you to also be able to prove that you've understood the advert, you've understood the role, and that this is something that you can do. Meaning you have to tailor up your CV and cover letter to be able to meet what the employer is looking for. They also want to see that you have the skills that match the requirement, and they also want to see the achievements you've have in your past previous work, and not just listing some duties that you probably picked out from the advert you get. And then the professional formatting of your entire document. They don't want any spelling errors or grammar errors in your document. And then they also want to see your why. What has motivated you to apply for the job? Why do you choose them and not any other employer, any other organization or company? And then they also want evidence of impact that you've created from the previous work using numbers. And then they also want to see consistency between your CV and cover letter, because the two must speak the same language. So most of the times when you see an advert, there are dozens of people that apply for this advert. Over hundreds. Sometimes we receive over hundreds application even for just one role, and it's very hard for somebody to read the entire document you get. So most recruiters spend about 6 to 8 seconds to just scan through your document. You can imagine what that means, right? For somebody to just take only 8 seconds to look at your document. And that's why we say first impression matters. In the first 6 to 8 seconds, they have already seen if your application is relevant. They look at your professional summary, if it makes any sense at all. They look at the skills to see if you actually have the relevant skills for the job. And then what are your recent experience? Where did you work? What were you doing there? What achievements do you have from your previous role? They also want to look at the education. Does it match what they are looking for? And then also in terms of the physical structure or the layout of the CV. So this will be done in about 8 seconds. Yeah. And if it passes the scan, then they can sort your application aside, and then they will later now come and look at it in details. But if it does not pass, then it is tossed away instantly, and then you get rejected just like that. So the goal for you is to ensure that your CV creates that first impression in the first 5 seconds when the employer is reading it, so that it gets all the attention, and that somebody spends time now to actually look at the details and the figures that you've put in the document. So um, most people say, if I have a CV, is it important to have an application letter too? Why do I need to apply with both documents? Because the CV has everything that you're looking for. Why do I need to write a cover letter? We have those debates where people feel the cover letter is even irrelevant at sometimes, but yes, they are different documents and they're all very important. So a CV is a document that highlights who you are professionally. It talks about your experience, it talks about your strengths, it talks about your achievement, it talks about your skills and qualification in terms of education background, and then it also shows if you are suitable for the role. And the purpose is to get you listed for the interviews and not get you the job. Get that right. Whereas a cover letter is a document that introduces you to the employer. It shows the motivation, what has motivated you to apply for this role. Why are you interested? Why did you choose this employer and not any other employer? Why did you choose that role and not any other role? It also demonstrates your suitability for that position, highlights achievement relevant to the advert. Now, this part of achievement is what you pick from your CV, and then it also shows your personality and motivation for the role. So that's why both documents are very important when you are applying for any position. I remember last week somebody asked me if a CV and resume are the same thing. They are not the same. Most times they are used interchangeably. A CV to mean a resume to mean a CV, but they are different, and these are the clear differences that you can see. So when somebody asks you to submit a CV, it is a more detailed document that highlights your entire career journey. When I say an entire career journey, it's, for instance, if you graduated in, let's say, 2020, the CV starts talking about you from that time you graduated. What have you been doing? You get, it narrates that entire story to date. Yeah. And then it's mainly longer compared to the resume because of the narrative that it provides. It's longer in terms of length. And then it's also very comprehensive because you are now providing a whole work history. And then in terms of your education, in terms of achievements, if you have certifications, you include them. If there are projects you've done, you have them. Volunteer work, internship work, and all of those. So it is a very comprehensive document, and it is very static. Yeah. So updated only when needed, because you can have a CV that is very long, you get. And normally when you're applying for work, you sometimes people don't use their CVs, you get, because it is very detailed and long. Yeah. And most organizations, they ask for CVs. Some international roles, they also ask for CVs. In academic sector, they also ask for CV. In research and medical roles, they also ask for CVs because they want to be able to see your entire career journey in just that document. On the other hand, when we talk about you having a resume is a summary of your CV, right? It is a very targeted document that helps you to apply for a specific job. So if you are applying for, let's say, an admin assistant role right now, and you've been working for the last 5 years, and you have a number of work experiences or history where maybe you worked as an admin assistant, an admin officer, and all of that and all of that. So when you are applying, instead of using your CV that has so many work history that some are not relevant for the role, you now reduce the CV and have a summary resume that is targeted for that specific application. So now you are only picking out experiences that are relevant for the job that you are applying for. So the ones that are not relevant, you don't include them, meaning it becomes a summary, and you are targeting it specifically for that application. It is normally very short, and it is tailored because it only includes the relevant skills that you need for the job, the relevant experience that you need for you to get the job. You don't put everything. And then it is very highly customizable because you have to adjust for each application. Now, when I say that, it doesn't mean that you can't do the same for a resume, for a CV. Some people prefer to actually have their CV highly customizable. Like, instead of having a resume, they'll rather work with a CV and just have it tailored to the specific application as well, including rephrasing achievements and things they've done in
Excuse
their
me, Brenda.
previous
Sorry to
experience.
interrupt.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me, Brenda?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I think they're asking you to slow down a bit. If you can,
Oh,
to,
so I'm so fast. Sorry.
uh,
Okay.
somebody asking if you can slow down the speed.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right. So we'll go over this again. I hope I can be a little slow. Okay. So we said CV and resume are not the same. A CV is more detailed because it documents your entire career journey in one place. It writes about every work that you've done, whether it is a volunteer work, internship work, actual employment, and all of those in one place. It's very detailed. It's a very long document, normally 2, 3 pages, even more you get, because it is very detailed. Whereas a resume is the summary of the CV, and normally you use it for targeted applications. If you are targeting a specific application and in your CV you have a number of experiences that are not relevant for that job, you take them out and get a summary that you can use as your resume and then submit that. The same for skills, the same for strength, the same for trainings. So in your CV, you will have everything that you've done, including trainings you've done in all of those. It is very detailed and lengthy, you get. But now, when you are applying for a certain job, you don't need to add all those things because it will be too long and somebody will be very lazy going through it, you get. Then you have a summary that you can use. So if you still want to call your CV, or you still want to tailor your CV for a specific role, it is still okay. Meaning you have to take out everything that is not important and just use it to apply for that specific role. Meaning you're now using your CV as a resume as well. In that case, you would have a resume as well as a CV at the same time, because now you've taken out other details that are not relevant for the job, where you have a summary and you've targeted this particular CV for that job application. I hope that's clear. But in essence, the two, and they are not the same. One is a summary, one is the full document that highlights everything. The other one is a summary of the other. I hope that is clear. So, when you're writing your CV, I know most of us who are still in school, we don't have CVs before. But when you're writing your CV, the first thing you need to put in terms of the components is to have a contact information where you have your full names, you have your phone number, you have your email addresses, you have a professional social media link that is for LinkedIn and all that. So it is very important to have that. So please, when you're putting contact information, don't include age, don't include marital status, don't include religion, unless the employer asks for it. So don't include them. The reason why you should not include them is because these things are used for discrimination. So they form basis for somebody to discriminate you in. So don't add them when you're putting your contact information. They are not relevant. Whether you're married or not, whether you're Christian, a Muslim, it doesn't matter if you have the skills that are relevant for you to perform in the job. So don't add details that are not important because they will be used against you. Yeah. Then, in terms of the personal statement, once you have a contact information, you now have a personal statement. A personal statement or profile summary or a professional summary, we call it differently, but it basically means the same thing. It's just a line or two, a paragraph that introduces who you are, your experience level, and what you bring to the table. It's more like your value proposition for the employer that, hey, I'm the best fit or I'm the best candidate for this role. So please choose me, you get. So that is what you should entail in your profile summary. And then the next component for you to add when you're writing your CV is work experience. So don't say that you don't have an experience. And when you're writing your experience, you should list them in a reverse chronological order. When we say in a chronological order, what that means is that you should write them with the most recent, yeah, employment being the first. So, for instance, I've started working since 2017. I will not start in my CV writing January 2017, I worked with this and that. No, I will start by now in 2025. Where am I at? So that is chronologically, reverse chronologically. So you start with the most recent employment first, then you go until when you started, in that order. And then include the job title you held with that employer, include the employer's name, the organization or the company, include the location and date. Location could mean not a very specific location like Payam or Boma or anything. You could just say maybe Juba, South Sudan. Yeah, a very generic description in terms of location. Or for those who are applying for field level positions, you can mention the state or the county so that it's a bit broader. You get, and then importantly, add dates. For instance, from this period to this period, you get. So say January 2025 to date, because you're still working here. So you add that. Or maybe January 2024 to December 2024. So it's very important for you to add that. And then under each experience that you've listed, add 4 to 5 points under each that describe the roles, that the responsibility and achievements that you've had in that role, because we want to be able to see what achievement do you have in what you're bringing to the table. So you should have that. And then for those of us who are fresh graduates, you would say, oh, maybe I don't have a direct work experience. You can add internships, that is the experience. You can add volunteer, that is experience. You can add um, experiences that you have had in your school during your university days. Maybe you held a leadership position, maybe you are in a club, you did something. Yeah, basically anything that can show or can demonstrate that you have a hands-on work. And if you don't have that, it will be challenging, because at the end of the day, people want to see that you've been able to do something, even if it's not in formal employment, but you've done something. So when you talk about experience, it doesn't necessarily have to come from formal employment. So it can come from all those other form of engagement, whether it is casual work, temporary work, consulting work, and all of those. So they all count. So after you've written all your work experiences, and then you can go further to write about your education background. So you put the degree, diploma, or um, master's or PhD that you have. You've put the institution where you've acquired this certification from, and then also the year of graduation you get. And sometimes some people prefer to add achievements or the GPA. It is strong and recent, it's good to add it, but if you know that your GPA is low, please don't add it until they tell you to put it there. You get. So most employers, they will ask you to put it there, but others they will not, because if they ask you to attach a copy of your academic document, they will see it there. So if you are attaching copies of your academic document, you don't necessarily have to mention it here. So they will just see the GPA there in your document. Then you also go ahead to provide your key skills. So your key skills should be relevant to the job that you are applying for, and also it should include both technical and soft skills. And each of these skills that you are highlighting should be those ones that can help you perform on this job. Don't add other skills that are not important for you to perform on the job. It will make your CV or resume very big for nothing. So when you talk about tailoring, you would get to understand what it means to pick out only specific skills that are relevant for you to be able to add to your CV. And then other sections, not mandatory, depending on where you are sending your application for. You could include achievements or projects or certifications or awards you get, or languages. Most of these are optional, but you can have them in your document if you like, depending on the kind of role that you're applying for. If you are applying for a project-based roles, obviously somebody wants to see what kind of project have you been able to do and all that. If you are applying for a more intensive maybe like an an education sort of role. They want to see the kind of awards that you've been able to do. If you're applying in a multi cultural environment, they want to see languages, your skills in languages. How well are you? What languages do you speak? And all of those. So, some of these, it's very good to add them if they add value to your application. You get that? So don't add things that don't add value to your application. If they add value, then you should be able to add them, because that will be something that sets you apart from the rest of the applicants or the candidates. Then the last thing is about references. Yeah, you can have references in your CV or not. So if you choose not to have references, you can just say available upon request. You can put a note, available upon request. Or you can simply list your referees there with their contacts and all that. And when you're doing that, please ensure that these are people that you have talked to and they understand that at some point they will be contacted. So they should be able to talk positively about you, about your skill, your experience, what you can do, what you can't do, and all of those. Because um, I've I had experience with some candidates who provide contacts of referees, and whenever you get to these people, they be like, "Oh, that one, please don't even hire that person." But you trusted this person enough to list them in your document. So it's important to ensure that whoever you are listing as your referee is somebody who is good at heart, not somebody who is aiming at stealing your opportunity for you. Because it's possible that you've really not done anything, but somebody has a lot of bad things to say about you. So it's up to you to choose whether or not to have reference. Some employers in their application instruction will put it there that you must have referees listed. So if they say you list it, please go ahead and list it. They'll even tell you how many you should provide. For HR and employment, normally 3 referees are enough. So you go ahead and add those in your document. Yes. Now, so we have 3 different types of CVs that are out there currently. We have the first one is the chronological CVs, and the chronological CV is a type of CV that lists your work experiences in the reverse order, with the most recent one starting first. Just like the way I've mentioned it, you start by listing the most recent experiences versus you listing where you started off your career. So that is a chronological CV. It emphasizes career progression a lot, and then it is ideal for candidates with a bit of consistent work history. You get what I mean by that is that if you're somebody who've been on the job throughout without any gaps, you get, for instance, you've started working since maybe 2020 to date, and please mute yourself. There's somebody who is not muted. Someone, please check that person. Okay. So when I meant what I said about commonly used or ideal for people who have consistent work history, I meant that if you've been in employment throughout without any gaps and all that, just a moment, you don't have gaps in your employment, then the chronological CV is ideal for you, because then you are able to emphasize how you've been able to grow in your career up to date. And then it is the most commonly used type of CV to date, and It's best for professionals with clear and stable job path and roles where experience is highly valued or emphasized. So you use a chronological CV. And then another type of CV is a functional CV. A functional CV is one that focuses more on your skills and competencies rather than the work experience. Yeah. So the functional CV de-emphasizes a lot in terms of dates and job titles. They are only interested in, okay, what skills do you have, and what do you bring on the table? What competencies do you have? Are you able to get the work done? Get, and they're very useful for career changers or those with employment gaps. For instance, if you've worked maybe in 2021 and then you skipped employment, maybe something happened, you're not able to work, and then you got another opportunity in 2022 and maybe you skip. So those kind of gaps in your employment, then you'd rather use a functional CV because there you are able to re-emphasize the skills that you have, what you bring on board, and all that. So that is a functional CV. And then the one that everybody has right now is, of course, the combination CV that blends both the functional and the chronological format in terms of the CV, where you're able to highlight your key skills, you're able to again list your employment history in the reverse chronological order, and then highlight all your competencies that you are able to bring to the table and also those that can help you perform the role, including your strengths that aligns perfectly with the job. So most of just a moment, the battery is going off. Yes. So most of us we use the combination CV because we are able to combine both elements together into one document. And most employers or recruiters prefer the combination CV because it blends both the information that they're looking for. So you would probably you've been hearing a lot, even from me, saying you should tailor your CV, tailor your cover letter, and all that. And what tailoring really means is that for you to be able to adjust your CV to match a certain job that you are applying for, you get. So you are able to highlight the skills, the experiences, the achievements you get, all of those things you are highlighting that is relevant for the role that you're applying for. That's what tailoring means, you get. And you could say it is also a process of you customizing your CV so that the employer immediately sees that you are a strong fit based on the exact need. So if you're able to communicate exactly what the employer is looking for through your CV, we would say that you have perfectly tailored your CV for that position because then the employer is able to see that you are the fit. Remember, we said the CV and the cover letter is the first thing that you send out to the employer. It is the first impression that you create with your document. So it's important to ensure that they are both properly tailored so that somebody has the opportunity to look at them in depth. So why tailoring is important is because it shows that you've understood the role, and then it makes your application stand out. There are dozens of people who are applying for the same position that you apply for. So when you tailor your CV, it helps your application to stand out. Please mute yourself.
Mama, bata mama, bata baby.
Please mute yourself. Okay. So tailoring also helps you to highlight your relevance because, like we said, you might be having a lot of experiences, a lot of skills, and all that. But through tailoring, you're only able to highlight those that are relevant for the position that you are applying for. And then it increases your chances of being shortlisted because now your application is able to stand out and it highlights all the relevant information that they need. And then it saves time because uh, the 6 to 8 seconds is very important for any recruiter looking at over hundreds of applications. So by tailoring, it saves time. And then it also helps you stay focused for the interview. Whenever you get an opportunity for an interview, by tailoring, it helps you stay focused because you know what you're going to say in terms of what you've already tailored, the relevant information in terms of your skill, your experience, and also the achievement. So it helps you to be very ready for your interview. So, how do you tailor your CV then? First of all, read the job advert carefully and be able to identify the skills, the qualification, and the keywords. This is what we did last week with the job analysis you get. And you can see that it's actually the first thing for you to do when it comes to any sort of application. When you talk about tailoring, it is the first thing. So read the advert carefully and don't just read it in a rush. Read it to understand, read it to pick out the information that are necessary for you to apply. So understand the advert carefully because you can't apply for what you don't understand. So that is the first thing you do when you're tailoring your CV. Number two, highlight employer priorities. Look for must have requirements, and core responsibilities, key skills, and all those, because those are priorities for the employer. So you look out for those ones in the advert, and it will help you when you are now writing your CV and your cover letter. Again, we covered this in terms of the job analysis. And then the third one is for you to match your skills to the role. Now, you've already picked out what the employer is really looking for. So the question is, do you have what the employer is looking for? You get. So match your skills to the role. Pick out the most relevant experience you have, the most relevant strengths you have, the most relevant achievements that you have, because you have a ton of these things, yeah? But not all of them are relevant for this job. So you only pick those that are relevant and match it up, because by matching so, you are tailoring what you have in terms of your experience, strength, skills, and achievement. You are tailoring them to those that are required by the employer. And then go ahead to tailor your professional summary you get. And when you're tailoring your professional summary, use details from the job advert as well, including the title, including the skills that are there, and add some relevant experience in your summary line. We said it's a whole paragraph, yeah? So you should be able to do that. And then go ahead and adjust your core skills section. So we said you have a lot of skills. Somebody is still not muted. Please check who that is.
Ah, white shirt and the red tie and shine. Mm.
Okay, so go ahead to adjust your core skills section as well. Remove all skills and competencies that are not relevant for the role that you're trying to apply for. Only have those that are relevant for you. And also, when you're adding, ensure that these are realistic because they may end up testing you on the job with these skills that you've listed. So ensure that you are not really lying about skills, but you actually have the skills because they may form part of the interview at some point, and you don't want to be asked about things and then you have no idea, but you had them in your CV. So don't add everything. That is okay, but add things that you sure you can do at the end of the day. Or if you can't do at the time, ensure that you go and learn it, so that if you're given the opportunity, you can actually demonstrate that you can do the work. And then when you go to your experience section, uh, focus on achievements, and then align those with the responsibilities for the role. So um, don't list a lot of responsibilities. Yeah, ensure that when you're writing your work experiences or bullet points, they should focus on the achievements. And then in your advert, we talked about how you are able to identify some keywords from the advert. So when you're tailoring your CV, ensure that you are able to include some of these languages naturally in your CV. You get, so that it's able to blend in properly. And then quantify your achievement. When writing your experience section, ensure that your achievements are quantified. Add numbers and results. For instance, you talk about increasing sales by this percentage, reducing turnover by this, and all that, and manage maybe this collected data with this. You get, so quantify your achievements so that it's able to communicate in terms of the figures. And then also remove irrelevant information, delete old data, unrelated roles, or generic statements that would make somebody feel like, okay, this is yeah, AI generated or doesn't know what they're doing and all that. So remove all irrelevant information from your CV. And then lastly, and very importantly, is for you to review and finalize. Ensure that every aspect is properly captured, clear, with no errors, professional formatting, structure, and all of those. And you would have a perfectly tailored CV that you can use to submit for the job that you are applying for. So I'd given you an example in terms of before and after tailoring, how those look like. And so, for instance, before, um, you would be writing something like, in your professional statement, somebody would say, a hardworking and a team player who is looking for an opportunity to grow. You get, when you write something like this, it is very generic. It doesn't communicate anything to the employer. You get, but after you've tailored, you'd be able to see something like, um, an administrative assistant with 2 years of experience coordinating operations, managing schedules, and supporting. You can already see that this person is already highlighting what they can do in the summary. You get. And then skills, they're able to mention office suite, communication, customer service, and all that. Ability to manage multiple tasks in fast-paced environments. So you see how the tailored version of the summary comes out perfectly compared to the one that is more generic, because this one communicates clearly the kind of person this is, the kind of value, the kind of skills that this person has. You get, why this is important is because it's able to show relevance. It captures the attention of the reader. The moment you start reading this, yeah, you get interested in reading it, and it addresses the employer's needs directly because they're able to see the skills are there, this experience is there, and all of those. You get, so there is an example of a before and after tailoring for a summary. And then in terms of duties and achievement, you could have something in your CV when you're writing your bullet points for your duties. Yeah, you write something like responsible for organizing meetings. I see this a lot for the admins or clerks and all that. So you say, I'm responsible for organizing meeting, which is okay. Yeah, but we want to see an achievement out of this duty that you've done. So it is just organizing meetings. So what have you done differently compared to others? Now read the tailored version in terms of the achievement. It's very strong, right? Planned and coordinated 30 plus, you get quarterly meetings or monthly meetings, ensuring timely communication and improving team attendance by 20%. Excellent, right? So you're already able to demonstrate to the employer that, yeah, this is the kind of impact that I can create for you when you give me the opportunity. But if you only say, I'm responsible for organizing meetings, it's just blunt, and anybody can organize meetings anyway, you get. But not everybody can plan and coordinate meetings effectively, over 30 meetings in a 1 month. And then you're also able to improve on time attendance by 20%. That's a lot, you get. So those are the kind of achievements when we talked about using numbers to write your achievement. This is what we're talking about, you get. So the difference is very clear. The achievements saw a lot of impact. They prove that you are valuable, yeah, and then they make your CV stand out, your application to stand out among the rest of the applicants. So here are some of examples of bullet points that we see a lot. Responsible for filing, you can see how a strong statement looks like. Organized and digitalized, 300 plus staff files, improving document retrieval speed by that percentage, you get. So these are some examples that you can already say and refer to your own CV and say, does it look like this? Does it not look like this? You get, because we've agreed that we should be able to show achievements and impact throughout our document. So ensure that when you are refreshing your statements or bullet points in your experiences, you are using achievements, impacts, and also numbers to communicate what you've been doing previously. So I'm not going to read all of these statements, so you'll get some of this later on. Okay, so again, when you are writing your CV, you should be able to use a lot of action verbs. You get. So let's just go back a bit here. So you see where in the weak statements, just look at all the weak statements. You can see responsible for, assisted, supported, and all those you get. But when you look at the improved versions, you are able to see a lot of these action verbs. The action verbs are very good because they strengthen your CV, you get. So they are like power words when you use them. Like you managed, you coordinated, you implemented, you developed, you led, improved, you organized, you facilitated, you trained, you supported, you designed. Now, these are very strong action verbs, and these are the things that are able to strengthen your CV. So when you are writing what you've done, please ensure that you use a lot of action verbs. A. And don't limit yourself to the things that are only on the slide. There's so many action verbs out there that you can use when writing your CV. So ensure that whenever you're writing your achievements, they are in action verbs and not just listing your duties, right? So they create very impactful bullet points that is able to grab the attention of the reader. Yes. And then we previously talked about what a cover letter is, right? So I provided a slide in terms of a bit of detail in terms of what a cover letter is all about. So we said that this is a document that introduces you to the employer. Most employers or recruiters read your application first before they look at your CV. Some do the opposite. They go to the CV first and then come back to read your CV, your cover letter. You get. So the purpose of you writing a cover letter, First of all, just know that the cover letter is what accompanies your CV, you get, because it is you expressing your motivation for the role. If you send a CV without a cover letter, it's possible that you are not motivated. You are not interested for the role because your interest is only seen in the application letter. Because in the CV, there is nothing in terms of motivation. You get, it's simply what you've been doing all through, which school you went to, and all that. But there's no motivation, and the motivation is only available in the cover letter. So if you send an application without, you've sent your CV without attaching a cover letter, some nobody will list you for anything. They'll just say, "Oh, this one doesn't have a motivation, or they're not interested in this role." They just submitted a CV. You get. So it is only the cover letter that introduces you professionally to the employer. It shows your level of motivation for the job. It highlights the most relevant skills and achievements from your CV, you get, and then it connects your experiences to the job requirement because you're able to demonstrate that because you've been able to do that, you can do better on this job as well. And then it persuades the employer to review your CV because in your cover letter, you will refer them to where they can find details if they need to, which is, of course, in your CV. You get. So a strong cover letter, here's a list of it, must have a header. I have a format or template somewhere in the slide. You'll get to see it. It has a header that has your name, contact information, date, and details of the employer. That's one. And then it has salutations where you have the where you address the hiring manager professionally, of course. And then we have a strong introduction paragraph where you state the role and introduce yourself, like in the introduction paragraph. And then why you are a strong fit, it matches your skills and experiences to that of the job. Highlight what the job is looking for and offer how you are a strong fit for the job. Key achievements, highlight the most relevant ones, one or two relevant accomplishments that are important for you to stand out for the job that you are applying for. And then also mention why you want the organization, why you chose the employer, why not every other person. How does the employer aligns with you as a person, your values, and all of those. So, interest in the employer. And then express appreciation and readiness. And you can also have a call to action where you invite them, ask them that you're available for any invitation for an interview and all of those. So those are some of the things you put in a closing statement, and of course, your name and of course optional things like adding profile and all of those. So that is what is required in a very strong cover letter. So everything, if you miss out on any one of these, your cover letter is not going to be very strong. So when you're writing your cover letter, address the hiring manager by their name when possible. And if you don't know, you can always say their hiring manager, their HR team, their recruiter. You will see in the advert there are some instructions on how you should apply. They will tell you where to address your application. So you see it there. If they don't put a name of a person, they'll put a department or something that you can address. So you address that properly, and then tailor your letter to match the job advert. We've talked about what it means to tailor, right? And then start with a very strong introduction, and we will see an example of how that looks like later on in the format. And then use all the keywords that you have identified through the job analysis, again re-emphasizing that every application starts with you analyzing the job advert. If you don't do that properly, you will not be able to know if there is anything like a keyword. You can't know if you need to tailor because you've not understood the advert properly. And then go ahead to highlight your relevant achievements with results. When we say with results, we're talking about the numbers that we've looked at. increased percentage and all that, so that you are able to show relevance in terms of your achievement. And then show genuine interest in the organization by linking your personal goal or aspiration to that of the organization. You get. And then keep it professional and concise, normally one page. There's no cover letter that should go two page. Always ensure that it is only one page. And proofread before submitting. Ensure there are no spelling errors, no grammatical errors, and all that. And your don't use one cover letter for all the jobs that you're applying for, please. Every job is unique. Every employer is asking for something that is different from the other. So you can't use the same cover letter throughout. So don't use the same cover letter. Don't repeat your entire CV in the cover letter because it will be too bulky, too lengthy to fit in. Just pick out relevant things and reference the CV when you are writing. And then don't use informal languages or images or shorthands and all that, because this is a formal communication. And then don't over explain unrelated experiences. Only use relevant experiences and information, skills, competences that are relevant to the job. Don't write very long paragraphs, keep it short and very clear. And don't focus on what you want only, so what you offer to the employer. As much as it's clear what you want to get the job, but show what you bring to the table. Offer value proposition to the employer so that they're able to see the value in you. And then, of course, don't send anything, official document, anywhere without double checking to see that there are no spelling errors, no grammar mistakes, and all of those. Sometimes it's good to also have a friend look at your document for you, just to ensure that it is able to meet the standards and are error free. Now, over the years, I've seen a number of applications, and most of the applications have the common mistakes, right? Common mistakes that people do every day. Every time you look at applications, you see all of this. One generic CV or cover letter for all jobs. I've had um, candidates who have applied for roles with me. These are different roles, and one time I was tempted to call that person, but luckily for him, I did. So every time I put out an advert, this person never misses to apply. The funny thing, he uses the same CV, the same cover letter, very generic, nothing is changing. And because of that, I actually, it caught my attention, and I had to give him that attention and just advise him on what he needed to do better, you get. And right now he's okay because he was able to actually get a job. So please avoid using one generic CV or cover letter like that for all jobs. We said every job is unique and different. So you should be able to write specific cover letters and CV or resumes for each job that you're applying for. And then failing to tailor documents to the advert. We talked about what tailoring means. So if you do not tailor your application, it won't be a perfect fit for the job that you are applying for. Writing very long and focused content. Don't write a lot of things that are unrelated to the job that you are applying for. Always ensure that whatever you're writing is those that match, that are relevant to the job you're applying for. Spelling and grammar errors. Again, most of the documents come with a lot of spelling errors and grammatical errors. So ensure that yours is free of that. Don't add irrelevant or outdated information. I talked about information that people can easily use against you to discriminate you. Please remove that. Don't add irrelevant information like where you went to your your nursery school or primary school. Very irrelevant. If you have a bachelor's degree, why would I need to look at your primary school, right? So it's very important. But employers these days have increasingly having interest in high school. So as much as you have a bachelor's degree, they also want to see how you did in your high school, because most of the things that people do so well are formed during those youthful ages. So yeah. But other irrelevant information, please don't put them. And then using a lot of statements with no impact. We talked about having the numbers there. So please ensure that when you're writing your statements, they are impactful. And yeah. And not including measurable achievements, yes, when you're not able to highlight what you've done over the years in the previous employment. So you should be able to include achievements when you're writing your resume. And then using unprofessional email addresses. Some of us create email addresses that are very unprofessional, right? So we use them and they are really disturbing. So ensure that your email address is professional, mainly with your name.